This video is on the Indian National Congress, A Road to the Beginning. This video is brought to you by upscquestions.com. This is presented by Aditya Krishna. You can reach me at agk.upscquestions@gmail.com. The Indian National Congress was not the first organization to be organized to discuss the future of the Indian nation. Various associations and organizations preceded the INC, but none, including the INC, adopted a confrontational stance in the 19th century. Confrontation, even in its mildest form, was only seen to surface with the rise of Balagangadhar Tilak, a man who in the history of India enjoys a place right on top with Subhash Chandra Bose, Sardar Patel, Rajaji, and JPN. Most of the organizations of the 19th century were mostly academic in nature. They were meant for the intelligentsia and were restricted to the upper class. They indulged in debates, met once or twice a year, and there was not much concrete action. However, newspapers, pamphlets, and books were a great source of nationalist propaganda and education. The nationalist demands were put across to the British administration through these means, and the press was seen to be a weapon of great power. On the surface, the nationalist Indian demands of those years were confined to no reduction of duties on textile imports, no expansion in Afghanistan or Burma, Indianization of civil services, the right of the Indians to join the semi-volunteer corps, the right of Indian judges to try European criminal cases, the appeal to British voters to vote for a party which would heed to Indian requests looked rather mild. But the truth is, the colonial regime could never have conceded even these innocuous demands, for conceding them would have meant an erosion of hegemony. The period between 1875 and 1885 saw a transformation in national thought to a certain degree. This was the time when new intellectuals were born, some of whom were more radical than the conservative upper class intellectuals. Radical here is only relative. Until 1905, all notions of radicalism were confined to boldness either through suggestions in the press or moving resolutions that seemed radical for the period. The young nationalists of Bengal in 1876 founded the Indian Association led by Surendranath Banerjee and Anand Mohan Bose. In Madrasapatnam, or what the British called Madras for the lack of elocution skills, the young Veera Raghavacharya, G. Subramaniam and Anand Charlu founded the Madras Mahajan Sabha in 1884. Bombay saw the birth of Bombay Presidency Association in 1885 led by K.T. Telang and the fiery Firoz Shah Mehta. The oldest of these associations that survived and continued into the 20th century was the Pune Sarvajanik Sabha, which was already in the hands of the nationalist leaders. As discussed before, the press was seen as the most potent weapon by these early associations and organizations. Hence, this period between 1875 and 1885 saw the birth of all the major nationalist newspapers which were to dominate the Indian scene till 1918. The Hindu, Tribune, Maratha, Kesari and Bengali. Amar Bazar Patrika was in existence from before, but it became an English language newspaper only in 1878, the story of which is quite amusing in fact. We will narrate it at a later point in this course. The British tried to rein in the Indian press through the Vernacular Press Act, but the Indian press waged a major war against it. The Indian textile industry employed a lot of people, and since 1875 there had been a continuous campaign around cotton import duties which the Indian wanted to stay. Lytton's Afghan adventure was opposed, compelling the British government to contribute towards the cost of the Second Afghan War. The Plantation Labour and Inland Immigration Act of 1881-82, which rendered the plantation labourers to serfdom, was opposed and protests were organised. There was great support for the Ilbert Bill of 1883, which would have allowed Indian magistrates to try Europeans. It was ultimately defeated because the Indians never acted in a coordinated manner. The Europeans, on the other hand, were highly organized in all their efforts and endeavors. This was the backdrop against which the Congress was to come into being, a culmination of the political work of the previous years. As discussed, a number of issues were being addressed, and hence an agenda had already formed for an organization to take center stage. More importantly, the leaders of different associations realized the need for centralized coordination and action, as that had been their Achilles heel when dealing with the Europeans. While it seems quite easy to explain the success of Congress in retrospect, the leaders who founded the Congress always understood this. The success or failure of Congress and its future character would be determined not merely by its founders, but by the extent to which the above discussed objectives were achieved in its initial years. This is the end of this video. The Indian National Congress will be continued in the next video. Thank you for watching.